You know, you often picture pigs as these really robust farm animals, right? Pretty tough.
Yeah, definitely.
But it turns out when the temperature climbs, they've got this surprising weakness, almost an Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine being stuck in a serious heat wave, but you physically can't sweat. That's basically the reality for a pig.
It's a tough spot for them, biologically speaking.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, swine hyperthermia. You probably know it better as heat stress in pigs.
Right.
And we've pulled together some really fascinating sources. They cover, well, everything from their unique physiology, why they struggle so much, to the pretty significant economic impacts,
Yeah, those are big.
and crucially, how to actually manage it.
So I think our mission here is to really sift through this analysis, pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge for you.
Okay.
We want to help everyone understand not just what happens when pigs get too hot, but why it's such a big deal.
And what can be done?
And absolutely, what can be done to protect these animals, and honestly, the industry too. It really makes you ask, how deep does this vulnerability actually run?
Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this vulnerability then. You mentioned their physiology is key. What's the absolute core biological reason they're so susceptible?
Well, the main thing, the really stark challenge, is that pigs just lack functional sweat glands. Simple as that.
No sweating at all.
No. So unlike, us or horses or lots of other mammals, they can't use evaporation off the skin to cool down effectively.
So what do they do?
They have to rely mainly on panting
Hmm.
and also actively seeking out cooler spots in their environment, shade, wet ground, that sort of thing.
But even the panting isn't straightforward for them, is it?
No, not at all. That's where their physiology creates another challenge. Their main cooling mechanism, the panting, it's actually pretty inefficient.
Why is that?
It's mainly because they have relatively small lungs compared to their overall body mass.
Ah,
So getting enough air moved to really cool down takes a lot of effort. And if they pant heavily for a long time, it's metabolically demanding, uses a ton of energy.
and it can cause other problems too.
Yes, exactly. It can lead to something called respiratory alkalosis. Basically, they breathe off too much carbon dioxide, which messes with their blood chemistry.
So it just adds to the stress.
It compounds the distress, absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just the lack of sweat glands. What else is going on biologically? I think you mentioned something about modern breeds.
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. These modern pig breeds, they've been intensely selected for things we value economically, like really rapid growth, big litters, high milk production.
Things that make farming efficient.
Precisely. But those traits mean these animals inherently have a very high metabolic rate. They're like little furnaces, constantly generating a lot of internal body heat, just doing their thing, growing fast.
Okay, so they produce more heat internally.
And then, add to that, the thick layer of subcutaneous fat. Now, that's great insulation if it's cold.
Keeps them warm.
Right. But in hot weather, it works against them. It traps all that metabolic heat inside.
So it's like wearing a winter coat they can't take off.
Exactly. It's a kind of physiological paradox.
Yeah.
The very traits that make them valuable economically also make them much more vulnerable to heat stress.
So they've got this inherent biological vulnerability. What are the environmental triggers then? What pushes them over the edge?
Well, it's a combination, really.
Ah,
High ambient temperature is obviously the main driver,
Yeah.
just hot air.
sure.
But high humidity is particularly dangerous
Why humidity specifically?
because it cripples the effectiveness of panting. If the air is already loaded with moisture, it's much harder for water to evaporate from the respiratory tract.
So their main cooling method just stops working well.
Pretty much, yeah. It becomes very inefficient. And then you add things like poor ventilation in barns or overcrowding.
Traps the heat and moisture.
Exactly. It just creates this microclimate around the pigs that gets hotter and more humid, making everything worse.
So for producers trying to manage this, how do they actually measure this risk? It's not just the thermometer reading then.
No, definitely not. That's why the temperature humidity index, the THI, was developed. It's a really useful tool.
Yeah.
It basically combines temperature and humidity into one single value. And that gives a much more accurate picture of the actual thermal stress the pig is feeling.
So it's more about how the pig experiences the heat.
Exactly. It allows for, data-driven decisions. There are charts like the one from Iowa State University that show clear zones based on the THI.
Like warning levels.
Yeah, alert, danger, and emergency zones. And each zone tells the producer, okay, now you need to intensify monitoring or start aggressive cooling or maybe even stops stressful activities like moving pigs.
That makes sense. Now, within a herd, are some pigs just naturally more at risk than others beyond the environment?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Size is a big factor. Your larger, heavier animals, think finishing pigs ready for market, pregnant sows, mature boars,
Yeah.
they're more susceptible.
Why them specifically?
It's about surface area to mass ratio. They have less skin surface area relative to their large body volume.
So less area to radiate heat from compared to how much heat they're generating.
Exactly. Makes it harder for them to cool down. And then stocking density plays a huge role too.
Just too many pigs packed together.
Yeah. It increases the heat load per animal, obviously. Less space to spread out, find cooler floor spots, and it also drives up the temperature and humidity right there in their immediate space.
You mentioned something earlier, kind of fascinating, about how heat stress affects them internally, beyond just getting hot. Something about their gut.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
This is a really important point and maybe less obvious. Severe heat stress can actually compromise the pig's intestinal barrier. We sometimes call it leaky gut.
Leaky gut. What does that mean?
Think of the lining of their intestines getting slightly damaged, developing like tiny gaps.
Okay.
And these gaps allow endotoxins, which are basically toxic bits from bacteria normally kept inside the gut, to leak out into the bloodstream.
That sounds bad.
It is. It triggers a big inflammatory response throughout the pig's body. And that inflammation uses up energy that should be going to growth or reproduction.
So it diverts resources.
Exactly. And it can even push the animal towards actual clinical disease, making them more susceptible to infections.
Wow. Okay, so recognizing this early seems absolutely crucial. What are the first signs a producer should be looking for? The subtle things.
Behavior is often the first clue. You'll see pigs actively seeking out cooler areas. If there's concrete, they'll lie spread out on it, belly down, trying to maximize contact.
Try to cool off.
Yeah. They'll also avoid touching other pigs, which is different from their usual behavior. And if there's any water or mud available, they'll definitely try to wallow.
Makes sense. What else?
A really significant early sign is that they'll start eating less. Their feed intake drops noticeably.
Why is that?
Because the whole process of digestion actually generates internal heat, the heat increment of feed. So instinctively, they eat less to produce less heat. And at the same time, their water consumption goes way up. Sometimes as much as 6 times their normal intake.
Trying to stay hydrated and cool down from the inside?
Exactly. Trying to facilitate that respiratory cooling and replace lost fluids. And generally, they'll just become more lethargic, less active.
Okay, so those are the early warnings. What happens if things get worse? If it progresses?
Then you really look at the respiratory rate. That's a key indicator. A normal resting pig might breathe 20, maybe 30 times a minute.
Okay.
If you see that rate climb above 50 breaths per minute, that's a clear sign of heat stress.
And in severe cases?
If you go way higher, easily over 100 breaths per minute, and it progresses to obvious open mouth, labored panting, you can see they're really struggling for air.
That sounds distressing just to watch.
It is. And as it gets into actual heat stroke territory, their core body temperature climbs. You'd measure rectal temperatures above 104 Fahrenheit, maybe even hitting 107 or higher.
What else might you see physically?
Their skin might look bright red, really flushed. That's the body desperately shunting blood to the surface, trying to release heat.
Trying to radiate it away.
Right. But in the critical stages, that can flip. You might see cyanosis, a bluish tinge to the skin, especially around the snout or ears. That means they're not getting enough oxygen.
And then neurological signs?
Yes, that's when it's really severe. You'll see things like muscle tremors, profound weakness, stumbling, inability to stand, sometimes collapse.
Oh, wow.
And the worst case, convulsions, seizures, complete disorientation, and finally coma. That often precedes death, usually due to severe metabolic problems and damage to the brain.
Thinking about all those signs, what really stands out to you, especially for someone maybe not around pigs constantly? What are the absolute red flags that scream emergency?
I'd say for someone less familiar, the most alarming things visually are probably that really rapid open mouth panting, maybe over 100 breaths a minute. That, combined with extreme lethargy, like the pig just won't move and maybe not eating at all. And definitely any of those neurological signs. Stumbling, weakness, collapse, tremors. If you see that, it's an immediate emergency.
Right, requires instant action.
Absolutely. It shows the pig systems are failing fast.
And that rapid decline isn't just tragic for the animal, it hits the farm's bottom line hard too, as you mentioned. Let's talk about that economic impact. How substantial is it?
Oh, it's really substantial. For the growing and finishing pigs, That reduced feed intake we talked about,
Mm.
plus the energy they burn just trying to stay cool, it directly hurts their growth.
Slower weight gain.
Slower average daily gain, yes. And worse feed conversion ratios, meaning it takes more feed, more cost to produce a pound of pork.
Okay, that's the market pigs. What about the breeding herd?
That's where it gets really costly, too.
Mm.
Heat stress causes what's often called seasonal infertility in sows.
Seasonal infertility.
Yeah, it's this whole cascade of reproductive problems. We see lower farrowing rates, fewer sows actually giving birth after being bred, smaller litter sizes when they do farrow.
Fewer piglets.
Right. More stillborn piglets. And sadly, even higher death rates among the sows themselves during hot periods often leads to them being culled from the herd earlier than planned.
So across the board losses. Do we have numbers on this? What's the estimated cost?
The estimates vary a bit, but they're staggering. Conservative figures put the annual cost just in the U.S. pork industry somewhere between, say, $481 million and maybe up to $900 million per year.
Wow, nearly $1 billion in some estimates.
Yep, and it's roughly split, maybe half of that loss, around $450 million, coming from the breeding herd issues, and the other half from reduced performance in the grow-finished pigs.
Those numbers are huge, but you hinted earlier that even those figures might be an underestimation.
Precisely. This is a fascinating area of research right now. The current models often miss a really crucial hidden cost.
Which is?
It's the lasting impact of heat stress that piglets experience while they're still developing in the womb, inside a heat-stressed sow.
So effects before they're even born.
Exactly. Research is showing that when a pregnant sow gets overheated, her offspring can be physiologically reprogrammed in utero.
Reprogrammed how?
They seem to be born with lifelong disadvantages. Things like a slightly higher core body temperature throughout their life, a metabolic tendency to deposit more fat instead of lean muscle.
Which is not ideal for pork production.
Not at all. And maybe even compromised immune function, making them more prone to getting sick later.
So these problems show up months later.
Months later, yeah. Poor feed efficiency, lower carcass quality when they finally go to market, maybe higher disease rates in the finishing barn.
And that loss isn't usually connected back to the heat stress the mother experienced.
Rarely. It's very difficult to track back. So this suggests the true financial burden of heat stress is actually considerably higher than those already large estimates we mentioned. It's a hidden, long-term drag on productivity.
That's quite profound. So given all this, the vulnerability, the huge economic cost, these hidden effects, what can producers actually do? What are the best prevention strategies?
Well, it really has to be a proactive, multi-layered approach.
Yeah?
You can't just rely on one thing. Environmental management is absolutely key.
Like the barn itself.
Yes. Proper ventilation systems are critical. You need enough airflow, maybe 250, 300 feet per minute, to constantly move hot, humid air out and bring fresh air in.
Okay.
Then, active cooling systems. Things like sprinklers or misters are common, but they need to be used correctly.
How so?
Usually on a cycle like maybe 2 minutes on, then 20 minutes off. You want the water to evaporate off the pig's skin to cool them. If you run it constantly, you just raise the humidity in the barn, which makes things worse.
Ah, the wet to dry cycle. Okay. What else?
Evaporative cooling pads can work really well, especially in drier climates where evaporation is more effective. And basic structural things help too. Good insulation in the roof and walls, light-colored or reflective roofing to reduce solar heat gain.
And shade for outdoor pigs, obviously.
Absolutely essential for any pigs housed outdoors.
Okay, that's the environment. What about managing the pigs themselves directly?
Water, water, water. It's paramount. Remember, their intake can go up 6 times, so they need constant access to cool, fresh water.
Cool water specifically.
Yeah, it helps. Using insulated water lines is a good idea, especially in summer, so the water doesn't get warm sitting in the pipes, makes it more palatable.
Makes sense. Anything with their feed.
Definitely. Dietary adjustments are crucial. Producers often switch to summer diets.
What's different about those?
They typically increase the energy density using fat. Fat has a lower heat increment. It generates less body heat during digestion compared to, say, protein or fiber.
Okay, so less internal heat production from eating.
Right. They also often reduce the crude protein level using specific synthetic amino acids instead to meet requirements without excess protein. Minimizing fiber helps too for the same reason.
And in supplements.
Yes. Electrolytes are often added to help replace what's lost through panting and urination, and antioxidants can help combat the oxidative stress that heat causes in the body.
Beyond the building and the feed, what about just day-to-day management? Husbandry practices.
Simple things make a difference. Reducing stocking density is a big one. Gives pigs more space to spread out, get away from each other's body heat.
Or for contact, too.
Exactly. And then timing is key. Any stressful activities, handling, vaccinations, moving pigs, transport should absolutely be restricted to the coolest parts of the day.
Early morning or late evening.
Ideally, yeah. Early morning's often best. And even feeding times can be adjusted. Offering smaller meals more frequently, especially during cooler periods, can encourage them to keep eating when their appetite might be suppressed by the heat.
Okay, so lots of preventative strategies. But what happens if, despite everything, a pig does overheat, show signs of acute heat stroke? What's the emergency drill?
Right, then immediate action is critical. First thing, get that pig out of the stressful environment. Move it to a cool, shaded area, somewhere with maximum airflow, maybe put a fan on it.
Okay, get it somewhere cooler. Then what?
Start actively cooling the pig's body. Gently spray or pour cool, tepid water over its entire body. Think lukewarm, not ice cold.
Why not ice cold water? Wouldn't that cool it faster?
It seems logical, but it's actually dangerous. Very cold water causes the blood vessels in the skin to constrict, suddenly vasoconstriction,
Okay.
and that traps the deep body heat inside, preventing it from escaping. It can actually worsen the core overheating and even induce shock. So, cool or tepid water is key.
Got it. So, gentle cooling with tepid water. Fans, too.
Yes, fans are great to increase air movement over the wet skin, which speeds up evaporative cooling. You can also place cool, wet towels on areas with major blood vessels close to the surface, like the neck, the groin, behind the front legs.
Helps draw heat out faster.
Exactly. And if the pig is still conscious and able to drink, offer small amounts of cool water.
And call the vet.
Absolutely. For any severe case, veterinary intervention is essential. They might need IV fluids to correct dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, possibly other medications depending on the situation.
Wow. Okay. So, reflecting on everything we've covered, it really drives home that swine hyperthermia isn't just, pigs feeling a bit hot.
No,
It's this really complex challenge, deeply rooted in their biology, kind of amplified by modern farming practices, and carrying these huge, sometimes hidden economic weights.
yeah, this deep dive, I think, really highlights how crucial it is to move beyond just reacting when things go wrong.
Mm.
It's about proactive, holistic prevention,
Right.
understanding those intricate vulnerabilities, the physiology, the genetics, and then putting integrated strategies in place. Environmental controls, nutrition, careful handling, maybe even genetic selection down the line.
No works together.
It has to really mitigate the impacts effectively. And that benefits both the animal's welfare and the farm's productivity.
As we consider how profoundly something seemingly simple like temperature can shape an animal's entire life, right, from development in the womb all the way to market, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden costs or long-term consequences are we potentially overlooking, maybe in other agricultural sectors, other industries, or even in aspects of our own lives, just because we haven't connected all the dots yet?